Shalom, shalom, giving all praises unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Raha, Hodash. Honors be to the elect elders of the nation of Israel that do labor and teach the truth with all truth and sincerity. Shalom to you, Akim, you hopeful elect on the highway and hedges, making your body a living sacrifice, according to Romans 12 and verse 1. Shalom to sincere believers, which consist of men and women. Shalom, Barakatham, and Abad Babal. This is your brother Zakar Aban coming back with another video. This will be going into the meaning of rebuke, not an elder. All right, because there seems to be some confusion on that. And, just make it as clear as possible through the spirit of Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shai. So, 1 Timothy 5 and verse 1, rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger men as brethren. Let's read it in the NLT. Never speak harshly to an older man. That's what it, ultimately means. Okay? Matter of fact, real quick, let's get that word for rebuke. Okay? The word for rebuke. It says,
Strong's G 1969. Epipleso. Epipleso.
Epipleso. And let's get the meaning. It says to strike upon, beat upon, to chastise with words, to chide, upbraid, rebuke. And go to that word upbraid. It means to what? Scold. All right. So scold, as it says right here. Never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. So you won't just be on that rah-rah type of time with an older man in his faith, all right, in his ministry. Okay? If there's something that, disturbed you or kind of bothered you, then you'll go to him and say, hey, what was the reason behind those actions? All right? The same way, in the world, your actual father, your pops pretty much will say something and, it may disturb you as a kid, but you'll go to him like, hey, what you did kind of, messing me a little bit. And, what was the reason behind that? All right. Never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. And let's read it in the KJV. It say, but entreat him as a father. Let's get that word for entreat.
Strong's G 3870. Parakaleo. Parakaleo.
All right, and that means to what? To call to one side's call for summon to address. So right, so what? So you're addressing what? You're addressing a particular issue you have with your elder. Okay? That doesn't mean that you're supposed to sit there and not say something. That's off. All right? If you got a problem, then you address it. Once again, not on no rah-rah. Not on no, you come in, looking up and down and you come in on some aggressive type, time. But ultimately, you are to do what? Address, entreat. To address, speak to, call to, upon, which may be done in the way of exhortation, entreaty, comfort, instruction, to admonish. All right? Encourage, strengthen, so on, so on. But to address. So you address a particular issue, right, with your elder. Okay? Which is likened unto what? A pops. As it says. It said, but treat him as a father. All right. Same way, once again, as if your father was to do something that kind of, rubs you some type of way, made you feel some type of way. Once again, you won't be on that rah-rah type of time, but ultimately you'll still address it according to scripture. But entreat, when we go to that word entreat, it means to what? Address. Address the issue that you have. Now, before I go down, bear with me 1 second. Let's get to the book of Matthew 18. Okay, whatever issue it may be. Matthew 18, and let's start verse 15. Okay? Then I'll read a little bit more in 1 Timothy chapter 5. It says, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. Now, real quick, now your elder is your brother. When you go to the meaning of the word brother, it's pretty much mean basically of your nation. All right. So it said, moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. Real quick, let's see. Let's try it on here. Let's get a word for brother. Okay. It says a 144. A call like how shy.
Strong's G80. Adelphos. Adelphos.
It says a brother, whether born of the same two parents or only of the same father or mother, having the same national ancestor. All right, and our ancestors is who? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, from your different respected tribes, having the same national ancestor, belong to the same people or countryman, any fellow or man, a fellow believer. Okay, we all believers. We in the ministry. We doing the work. We got the, we have shown a pattern. All right, been on the highways and the hedges, so on, so on. Unite to another by the bond of affection, associate employment or office, brethren in Hamashiach. Okay, we all a part of the body of Yahweh Shai. Okay, being part of the body of Yahweh Shai, Lord's will. All right, so it says having the same national ancestor, belong to the same people or countrymen. All right, so these are what your brothers, because we ultimately are Israelites from different respective tribes. So moreover, if thy brother shall trespass against thee, go and tell him his fault between thee and him alone. If he shall hear thee, thou hast gained thy brother. Okay, the same way we just read in the book of 1 Timothy 5 and verse 1. I gotta grab it real quick. All right, where it says entreat. Because that word entreat once again goes into address, salakia. Right? It says to call to one side, call for summon, to address, speak to. So once again, you are addressing a particular issue you have with that particular brother, whatever issue it may be. Okay? But if he would not hear thee, this is all read. This is Yahweh Shah speaking. But if he would not hear thee, then take with thee one or two more, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word may be established. All right, this all go back to the laws, man. And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. All right, this is ultimately what you're exposing it. All right, as I'm gonna grab back in the book of 1 Timothy chapter 5. But if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican. All right. He's not gonna be what? A part of the congregation anymore, man. All right. So let's skip down. This is 1 Timothy chapter 5. I may want to start up just a tad bit. See where I want to start. Let's see. I'm gonna go straight to the point. Against an elder, receive not an accusation, but before 2 or 3 witnesses. Pretty much in the same, same thing I was just read in the book of Matthew chapter 18. Do not listen to an accusation against an elder unless it is confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. Them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. Those who sin should be reprimanded in front of the whole church. The same way as we just grabbed in the book of Matthew chapter 18, where it says, if he neglect to hear thee, right? And if he shall neglect to hear them, tell it unto the church. But if he neglect to hear the church, let him be unto thee as an heathen man and a publican. Okay? So 1 Timothy 5 and verse 20, once again, them that sin rebuke before all, that others also may fear. Those who sin should be reprimanded in front of the whole church. This will serve as a strong warning to others, all right, or what not to do, or what not to follow. Okay, Leviticus chapter 5. And these are what basic and fundamental scriptures, and these are basic and fundamental scriptures that we read, but we must take heed. First, Leviticus 5 and verse 1. I'm reading this in the KJV and also in the NLT. And if a soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, and is a witness whether he have seen or known of it, if he do not utter it, then he shall bear his iniquity. If you are called to testify about something you have seen or that you know about, it is sinful to refuse to testify, and you will be punished for your iniquity. All right. And let's get that word. Let's see what it gives us for the word testify.
Strong's H 5046. Nagad. Nagad.
All right, let's go to that word for tell or testify. It says to be Putuous, tell, make known, to tell, declare, to tell, announce, report, to declare, make known, expound. Okay, and that's what we are out here to do. Publish. It say to what? To publish. And that's the we go to the word preacher. It means to what? Proclaim. To publish, man. To publish, declare, proclaim. To avow, acknowledge, confess, messenger. Okay. So when it says, rebuke not the elder, once again, it just means what? Speaking harshly. All right. That's all it means, man. Because if that was the case, there's plenty of examples of men of prominence being reproved. Okay. Who you thought that was, real quick? Who you thought that was in the Garden of Eden? All right, which nothing but paradise. Who you thought that was? Reproving Adam and Eve, man. All right, there was a prophet, and Adam was in the same stead. He was a king, man. Okay, but he was what? Reproved. Matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and grab it. Not to dive too much into that, but it just comes to mind in the spirit. Okay. Let's see where it's at. All right, Genesis 3 and verse 8. Salakia. Genesis 3 and verse 8. And it real quick, it says, and they heard the voice of the Yahweh power walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Adonai Yahweh amongst the trees of the garden. Once the trees goes into what? Peoples and nations. Now, who is this walking in the garden in the cool of the day? Let's prove it. That would be what? A prophet sent forth to do what? Make known where you have went off and where you have erred. Right? Luke 1 and verse 70. Because the prophets have always been since the world began. Luke 1 and verse 70. As he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. That's clue number one of who that was walking, Salakia. Who that was walking in the garden. That was a prophet that was sent forth. As Yahweh has always done. All right, always sent his servants to reprove and rebuke. And it reads, and they heard the voice of Yahweh power walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Now, cool of the day is right before, judgment. For example, this would be likened what to a cool of the day. Okay, in this time right now, right before the Most High brings the hammer down. All right, the Most High always send a prophet out first, then ultimately ultimately he bring the hammer down. Same way he did with Moses in Egypt. Same way he did with many more prophets, man. Okay, and they heard the voice of the Adonai Yahweh walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from among the presence of the Yahweh power amongst the trees of the garden. All right, it says the voice of the Most High. All right, so it say the voice. Now let's prove that once again this is a prophet sent forth to reprove to reprove and correct their actions, to tell them where they went off, or where they erred. Let's go to the book of Baruch to prove that the voice, right, was ultimately a prophet. Baruch 1 and 21. Nevertheless, we have not hearkened unto the voice of the Adonai our power, Adonai Yahweh our power, according unto all the words of the prophets whom he sent unto us. And this has always taken place right here. Baruch 1 and 21. The Most High always has sent men to do what? Reprove and rebuke, regardless of what status you may have, regardless of your position. If you err, you're gonna be what? Corrected. Okay. Nevertheless, Baruch 1 and 21. Nevertheless, we have not hearkened unto the voice of the Lord our power, Adonai Yahweh our power, according to all the words of the prophets whom he sent unto us. Did the same thing with Adam and Eve, man. Nothing had changed since as it says once again, Luke 1 and 70. This is always taking place. All right, there's a particular pattern that our people, follow, man. As he spake by his mouth, as he spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which have been since the world began. Okay, so ultimately that voice was who? A prophet. Okay, to tell them, where to err. And we relate, later in the Genesis, 3, we, you see where it says, you'll work, the sweat of thy brow and all of that, So, but the point was that the prophets are doing what, sent forth to reprove and rebuke, man. Okay, so you see something that's going on, ultimately, you're going to make mention of it. Okay, so that whole, rebuke not the elder, it just means what? Speak harshly. You're not going to be on that rah-rah type of time. Okay, so I'm going to end it there. I'm going to give all praises and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Raha, Hodash. Honors be to the elect elders of the nation of Israel that do labor and teach the truth with all truth and in sincerity. Shalom to you, Akim, your hopeful elect. On a highway and hedges, making your body living sacrifice. Shalom, Brakatham, and as always, Abba Babal. On to the next, man.